Hi folks, and welcome back to Old Trusty part number 7. And to be very honest, I've been doubting if I should post part 7 or not, because I did not make a lot of progress after I've built the cross member on Old Trusty. That's this part right here. And after we replaced the panel in the back. The reason for that is that I had a lot of setbacks. You know, you look at where should I place the sills, and you start measuring, and then you find out that there's an issue with the door hinges, and then you find out that actually there's even an issue with the support structure of the front cabin onto the chassis, that all these support brackets are rusted away. So, and because of that, the bulkhead has moved forward a bit, and all of that makes it like, you know, you look at one thing, but then you can't fix it because you need to go to the next one, and then that one can't be fixed because you need to do the other one. So it's all about sequencing when you're restoring old cars or old trucks or whatever. So that's why, Mike, I couldn't give you that video this weekend, but I did this one especially for you, so at least you have something to watch for. And of course, all of you, my dear subscribers, because I recently had a lot more subscribers, and I thank you so much for that. Anyhow, in this video, we're going to start looking at how we're going to prepare for the new sills that go in, and we're going to be looking at how we're going to remove and how we do remove the front bracket supports, and then we will build new ones. It's kind of a short video this time, and maybe not that exciting to watch, but okay, you know, you guys can skip it if you want. After this video, I will have a part 7 bis, which will be all about mounting the stuff that we now going to dismount and recreate. And then finally, I might be able to get to a creation of a cardboard sill and see how it all fits together. But you'll see it in this video how complex the sills are without really knowing how they look like. So, guys, keep watching, and thank you again for viewing my video. So let's get on with it. In part 6, we fixed the back end of the cabin. We also made a new cross member. I haven't been able to mount it yet because I first need to build the sills. But before we start working on the sills, I'm going to put some more reinforcement up brackets, and I bended a couple of brackets of 2mm steel, and that will go on the back of this cabin to give it a bit more support, like so. I already mounted a couple, one on this side and one on the other side, and now I'm going to add a couple more, one in the middle and 2 more, so that becomes really solid and sturdy. And now I'm not going to weld it in, but I'm going to use something what they call rivets. So this is a rivet pliers, and rivets are these small little things. They are blind rivets, as they call them. Here you go. So this is one of those rivets, and that's going to go in. So all I need to do is drill a hole in the metal, and then put the plate up or the bracket, and then put the rivet in. There we go. I don't need that one. I already measured out where they are supposed to be, and I'm just gonna put it in place. This is a bit too right. That looks good. I'll have one in the middle to drill, but first I will put the rivets in, and then on the edges, and then I do the middle one. There you go. That's all you need to do. So the brackets are completed. I painted them with zinc so they can't rust. The next thing will be to put the cross member in the back. So this is this part, which is spanning the cabin from the left to the right. So that's now all complete, but it's not welded in place yet because I can't, because I have to build first the sills accordingly to make sure that the cabin is having the right size. Because the last thing I want is that the doors don't shut anymore, or I have too much of a gap in between the door and the chassis. So that's why I can't mount this part yet. That's the left-hand side door. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'll take you a close-up soon. There's a gap between the door and the frame, actually. And the gap becomes real wide on this side. And the same thing is happening here on this side. A very thin gap, and then it becomes wide as well. So what this really means is that the cabin has opened up, it stretched on the bottom. Now on the top it didn't because the roof kept it in place, but on the bottom it has done that. So let me open the door and show you why that is. As you can tell, there are no sills. No inner sill, no outer sill. And obviously, as you can see, this can move around a lot. Now I can't weld in the sills because the sills will hold all this part together and I can't really weld it in. So first I will have to sort out the doors because my only reference is the bulkhead, and this is the bulkhead or the firewall. That's the solid part I still have on the cabin. So I have to make sure that the door really aligns nice around the top part of the bulkhead and all the way down. And right now that's not the case, and you'll see that in a second. And at the same, once I've sorted that out, then I can actually put a bar in between the two sides inside the truck and then squeeze the things together so that I have a nice and flush gap between the door and the cabin itself. And that's the intent. And once I have that established, then I can start creating my inner sill, make a cardboard model and then weld it in. So this is a bit of work. So let's have a closer look on the left-hand side door. So this is the left-hand door, and if you take a close look at it, you'll see that we have a gap at the bottom of about 25 millimeters, right? Now that's a lot. On the top, I have something like 4 millimeters. So that's a big difference. The same thing happens on this side where we have the hinges. And see the gap here? This is a big gap. And this gap is about, let's see, well, that's about 20 millimeters as well. And again on the top it gets narrower and narrower, and all the way on the top I have a gap of 4 millimeters. So I really would have to squeeze together the whole cabin to remove this gap. But then if you look on this hinge here, the hinge has already been adjusted all the way inwards or towards the cabin, actually to lift the door to compensate for this gap. And I wonder why that was, and of course now I found out. This panel is loose at the inside, you know. I don't know if you can see it, but this whole panel, if I take the door, see how that goes? The panel lifts, and that's the problem. That panel needs to be reinforced at the inside. And once we've got that sorted out, we can place the hinge back to its normal position. And then I can align the door frame with the cabin all around the edges and hold it in place. And then I can put the sill up. But let me show you what the issue is on this side. So this is the part that is kind of rusted away that was holding the pillar in place where the door is attached to. And because of that's been gone, the door is pushing backward and the panel is bending more and more. So if I measure the distance from the bulkhead to the actual edge, then I measure 26 centimeters, right? So that's 26 side to side, and it's actually measured on this edge here to that edge. And on the other side, I measured it before, it is actually 27 centimeters, right? So now I'm talking about a centimeter difference, and that explains this gap I have on the door. So the first thing I'll need to do now is to rebuild this panel here and get it welded onto the door pillar. But even the door pillar is in a pretty bad shape. So I will have to fix that as well. So it's like one thing after the other. You fix one thing and then you have the next thing to do. And then well, you can't do that one because you have to do another one again. So that's the issue with old vehicles like this that are totally rusted away. Before I'm going to do this, I need to look a bit at the supports. Because these are the supports that keep the cabin on the chassis. And they don't look too good as well. So let me show you that side. The support that holds the cabin onto the chassis is here, and that's mounted on the front bulkhead. I have the same thing on the other side over there. It's the same thing. But then if you look on the bulkhead, you can actually see how this actually is bent forward. You see that edge here? It's really bent forward, and that's because that whole cabin part has been pushing that bulkhead forward because the door was pushing on it. So what I need to do is repair this part. Now that part, you know, it's rusted away. So I will have to cut a piece out, but then also the supports are in pretty bad shape. So the first thing to do now is to build the new supports for the front part of the cabin to the chassis. That's the first thing. Once we've got that in place, we will then repair these little sections here. And then we'll build the inner strengthening part that I showed you just a second or a few minutes ago. And that way, once we've got all that sorted out, I should be able to get this panel back in its original position where it's supposed to be, and then align the doors. And once I have got the doors aligned with the proper spacing all around, I can then actually start welding in the sills. So first I have to build the sills. So Mike, you can tell this is a lot of work, right? So that's why I couldn't post more videos earlier, because even this video is probably not worthwhile posting it because it's kind of all talk and little action. Anyhow, so I'm going to remove the support one side at a time, but I can't do that unless I hold up the bulkhead. So I'm going to support the front of the cabin and especially the bulkhead, and use some metal bars for that. That's has always been the easiest way to do it, and quite handy and easy to adjust. I'm always using scaffolding clamps, because those are very handy. And I'll block it with an old screwdriver. So this bracket has been spot welded into place, so we're going to drill them out, but first I need to find the spot welds. I think it's easy to drill out the spot welds from the bulkhead side, so that's more accessible. So let me clean it up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 4 spot welds that we need to drill out, and then we should be good to go. Okay. So folks, this is the part we've got out of the cabin that holds the cabin onto the front support of the chassis, and it is pretty rusty. As you can see, there's holes inside, and in fact there are 2 brackets inside one bigger bracket. So we have the big bracket and there's a smaller one inside. So I will have to make 2 brackets and then form it to one, and then I have to make a second set like this for the other side of the cabin. And once we've done that, we can put it all back together. I'm not going to show you how I'm going to bend this metal. I mean, this is 3mm thick metal, so it's pretty thick. So it's all about grinding it and then bending it. And you've seen how you bend metal, not that hard. And then I might even have to weld some pieces on it. And then we'll put it all back together into the cabin. And I'll show you that in my video part 7 bis. The sills are not going as fast as I expected them to go. But even the sills themselves are a bit of a problem, trying to identify how the hell did they look like. I mean, what was the dimensions and so on. I haven't found much, but if you guys would come across a Citroen 2023 type U, like the one I have, then I would really appreciate if you could post me some information or point me to some location. That would be great. I would really enjoy that and appreciate it as well. So anyway, then afterwards, when we got all this back in, and we'll start forming the inner sill. Now the sills are a story all by themselves. I've been looking at a lot of sites and on YouTube movies, but there is almost nothing on it. Let me show you what I have left of the sills and what I have to work. Let me take you over there and then I will say goodbye to you for this video. This is the left hand side sill, and if I'm gently enough I will be able to put that together like so. This is a bit of a nightmare. So this is what's left from the inner sill. Not very much, is there? You can still see a little rim here. Luckily I have the width, so that's a good thing. But for the rest, it's pretty hard to tell how it was formed. I don't even know how high it was. It's very hard. I see there's some bends, so I have to work with something like this.